Thanks. In a way, I'm not interested in older people. I'm interested in disadvantage, and I'm interested in urbanisation, I suppose. And I live in a city, work in a city for the vast majority of my adult life, which is one of the most disadvantaged places in the UK. Manchester has the lowest life expectancy, or the second lowest. We're always in the relegation zone, put it that way, for life expectancy for men and women. But if you come to Manchester, you look around the city centre, you may think, well, this is a happening place, it's a wonderful place, and there's all the narrative around the Northern Powerhouse and so on. And some of that stuff is true. So I entered the kind of ageing world from a viewpoint of wanting, I suppose, a more equal place. And so lots of the narrative and lots of the discussion around the generational conflicts and so on is something in a way that I don't recognise, or I recognise only as a kind of side discussion. And hopefully we'll pick some of that up in the discussion, because I think the other key point for me, and some of the things that Helen described, that we need more contact between young and old, I think there's mixed evidence on this. I think there's some evidence around which says that actually in some ways there is more contact between the generations than there's ever been. And this idea that we're being age segregated is a contended one, I think. So we need to unpack that and think about that. So I'm interested in disadvantage. I'm interested in places in which people, as they get older, can have a good quality of life and live longer. And that's really what interested me about the age-friendly city concept, because I've been working on this agenda, I guess, for the thick end of 20 years in one way or another in Manchester. And when the World Health Organization launched this programme in the mid-2000s, it was a research project, 33 cities across the world, with focus groups of older people right across the world, trying to design what an age-friendly city meant. And they came up with these 8 domains, which you can look up on the internet if you've got access to the internet, or you can borrow one of my little books if you want at the end of the session. And they set out these 8 domains of what an age-friendly city should be. So we looked at this, and actually what we thought was, this is a positive narrative around urban life, and it's a positive narrative around ageing. So we joined the first wave of 10 cities internationally, including New York, Brussels, Geneva, and so on. And we've been developing this programme for all those years. I mean, the great news is that there are now something between 250, 280 cities internationally, some national programmes that are signed up to the World Health Organization's global programme. So this is an idea which has huge interest and is hugely energising, I think, for many, many civic leaders, for many social groups. The European Commission is about to launch a covenant of mayors on age-friendly environments next month. So this is something that's really got people energised. And I think it's because there's a role for everybody in this programme. So you can be a university and be an age-friendly university, and there was a conference in Dublin this month about that. You can be an age-friendly hospital. Because actually hospitals are primarily places where that provide services for older people, but they're not particularly age-friendly in terms of the way that they're designed, in the practice, in the language in which clinicians talk about ageing, actually. It can be an age-friendly street. It can be an age-friendly car. You've got all these possibilities for social action, for design, and for collaboration. And that's what I like about the age-friendly idea. I think I hope Helen and I can have a discussion about this all age-friendly thing, because in a way I think it's a repackaging, in my experience, of a kind of intergenerational narrative, which is important but which is different as well. Because one of my key arguments is that although we want to try and design for everybody, you can't design for everybody. It's a kind of utopian idea in a way. We have to find ways to collaborate, to work together. But if you think about tactile paving is everywhere in the world. I take photographs. I have a colleague at Salford University who takes photographs of tactile paving, and we exchange these photographs. But if you think about tactile paving for an older person, and it's incredibly important that we have tactile paving or a type of paving which is for people who are sight impaired. But actually for many older people it's a huge problem because they end up falling over. Okay? Particularly older women, and if you've got a heel, we know the evidence. So this idea that you can have universal design for everybody, is really, I think, utopian. So we need to work through what that is. The last thing I just want to say, a kind of checklist for an successful age-friendly city. The first thing is leadership. You need political leaders, social leaders, civic leaders buying into the narrative of an age-friendly city. You need a different narrative, and Guy and Anne and others are absolutely right. People need to be saying that cities are designed for working-age adults, and they need, as I worked out as I was walking along the front here, they need to be designed more for other groups. We need a partnership approach which brings together world-class research, social action, civic participation, and the day-to-day activity of older people. And the last point, I think, is, and this is echoing Guy's point, we need to see older people as citizens. We need to see everybody as citizens, but specifically we need to see older people as citizens with rights to the city, and not to be pushed out of the city is what happens. And one of the projects, which is a kind of emblematic project that we have in Manchester, about reclaiming space and inner city space and city centre space, is we got a phone call from one of our older activists, if you like, and she said, Paul, if you put on another tea dance, I'm gonna come down to the office and basically give you what for. What we want are club nights in the city centre, dancing to the Stones and the Beatles in the way that we did when we were teenagers. So we put on this nightclub in the city centre, which is for older people or people getting older, and it's called My Generation. 100, 200 people maybe go. But it's an emblematic project. It's saying that the city centre is a place for people as they get older, and it's a place for working class older people as well. It's not just a place where you go and experience the high arts and say job's done because job isn't done. So, I think this is an argument. It's a polemical debate about who cities are for, and it's an argument about disadvantage and inclusion.
Thank you very much indeed.